Hello there friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan and we've been getting a lot of comments in the comment section about how stun rounds work. I guess ever since the Bad Batch has turned against the Empire, they've been forced to go the non-lethal route in order to survive and not kill their fellow clone brothers. Admirable, but is this actually a smart thing to do? Well, today we're going to take a look at how stun rounds actually work and discuss their pros and cons. So how do blasters work exactly? Well, typically they use some type of fuel, usually a high energy gas like Tabana, which is amongst the most popular fuel source for blasters. This is collected from gas giants like Bespin. This gas is then excited by energy cells in the weapon, which ionize the gas into a plasma form. This is all pretty standard stuff. We can do it here on Earth with our current technology. But the next step is where it gets a bit confusing. The plasma is then streamed through a collimating component in the barrel made up of a focusing lens. This basically removes any errant rays of energy and makes sure that everything is basically streamlined and facing one direction. This is actually a common process deployed by particle accelerators in our world. At this point, the plasma is then fed into a chamber in which an electromagnetic field is used to shape the plasma into a projectile of sorts. The longer the barrel, the more room for more collimating components and a larger electromagnetic field, which creates a stronger and more energetic round. Still, blaster bolts, because of their inherent instability, will begin to dissipate, especially when flying through atmosphere, greatly limiting their range. Now, blasters come in all different shapes and sizes with different levels of gas usage and different energy cells. The type of gas you use also determines what color the rounds are, in case you're wondering. So those are the basics on how blasters work. You're essentially shooting dangerous volatile projectiles in a plasma state that are somehow contained by an electromagnetic field so that they just don't dissipate when they leave the barrel. Now, when a blaster round hits a person, it can do a lot of damage and burn a hole right through their flesh and liquefy their insides. In Star Wars, most armor is made to protect individuals from blaster rounds. If you take a look at the standard Stormtrooper or Clone Trooper armor, you'll find that the armor is usually made up of some kind of Duraplast composite that usually has a very glossy and reflective surface. The idea here is when a blaster bolt hits the armor, it will reflect a certain portion of that energy away from the user. The secondary purpose of this armor is that it spreads the energy out across the body, so there's less chance for penetration. The insulation body glove, which is worn underneath the armor, also helps absorb all of that energy. Even when your armor suit is working properly, you're still going to have some issues when someone shoots you. Most people get knocked out by the energy dispersion from the round, even if the suit isn't pierced. That energy still has to go somewhere. Now, some blasters like the Stormtrooper's E11 or Clone Trooper's DC-15S actually have a built-in stun setting, which can be used to knock an individual out without any long-term damage. Instead of emitting a bolt though, the stun rounds come out in a large blue circle which expands to a larger size. We're not exactly sure how E11s and DC-15Ss produce stun rounds, but we can kind of guess based on what we know about the internal makings of these weapons. When the stun round setting is turned on, the energy cells in the blaster still ionizes the gas in the cartridges into plasma. But the stage in which that plasma is culminated and also condensed into a projectile is basically skipped. And so instead of firing an energetic projectile at a person, you are firing a loose cloud of ionized particles at someone. Those ionized particles are still powerful enough to overwhelm a person's nervous system and temporarily incapacitate them. It's similar to what a taser does to someone. Now, in Legends, it's stated that the E11 actually has multiple stun settings, depending on, I guess, how big the humanoid you are firing at is. It also states in Legends that the E11 stun settings uses photonic energy byproducts created by the weapon for fuel. So, from what we can tell, this means that blasters create a byproduct of radiated photons, also known as gamma rays, which are highly energetic and can do a lot of damage at the molecular level. There are also special non-lethal weapons like stun blasters and sting beams, which only fired stun rounds. Bail Organa, who's Alderaanian and was a pacifist, liked to carry around one of these non-lethal options. So when a stun round hits a human or a humanoid, it basically overloads the nervous system and makes them lose consciousness. The stun rounds are designed to give their user space and time to make decisions without actually harming someone. Sometimes victims will regain consciousness after being stunned, but will remain paralyzed and unable to move their limbs for a short period of time. The after effects of such an experience could be terrible. Victims usually awake to extreme nausea, dizziness, and body aches. If the stun rounds aren't properly adjusted and are too powerful, they can actually kill someone, especially someone with pre-existing conditions. Apparently, Wookiees have a general weakness to stun rounds, which could have lethal results. Also, stun rounds can create heart palpitations and even cause someone to have an irregular heartbeat. It's really not recommended for stormtroopers or clone troopers to use stun rounds on pregnant women because there's a 50% chance for these non-lethal shots to cause a miscarriage. Apparently, the ion blasters used by Jawas has two added side effects of temporary color blindness and minor dehydration. So a lot of weird things can happen to you if you do get hit by a stun round, but I guess it's still better than being hit by an actual blaster round. Now, from what we can tell, these stun rounds can pierce through a lot of things. A lightsaber, for instance, can't block a stun round, neither can the plastoid armor of the clone troopers and stormtroopers. It seems like a clone commando's Katarn armor, however, is thick enough to withstand multiple stun rounds and keep the individual wearing it conscious. Materials like Duraplast are most likely an electrical insulator. The standard clone armor and stormtrooper armor are probably way too thin though to stop the energy from piercing through it, even though they are made out of Duraplast. It is also possible that the Katarn armor the commandos are wearing have deflector shields built into them. At least in Legends, we know that is the case. These deflector shields should provide some type of protection from stun rounds. Stun rounds have a lot of advantages. For one, they have a very wide field of fire, far more than even a sawed-off shotgun firing birdshot would. This makes it very hard to dodge the projectile, which is why it's one of the preferred weapons to be used against the Jedi. Because as we mentioned before, lightsabers don't do much against stun rounds. And because stun rounds don't really do that much physical damage to their surroundings, they're actually a perfect weapon for on-ship security. I mean, imagine if the rebels on the Tantive 4 had stun rounds. They could have completely controlled the bottleneck through which the stormtroopers poured through, without having to worry about damaging the ship and venting it. Although actually, now that I think about it, they were probably in the Imperial Star Destroyer's hangar by that point anyway. The one main drawback for stun blasters is their range. This cloud of ionized particles just won't travel very far. And so they are kind of useless in larger environments where targets engage each other at much further ranges. So there you have it, guys. That is all the information we could find about stun rounds that come from blasters in the Star Wars universe. As you can see, there are some really big advantages for using this non-lethal option, especially when going up against, supernatural Jedi warriors. Well, let me know in the comment section below what you think about this video. Also, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. As usual, thanks for joining us today. If you're watching this, you are Generation Tech.